Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Soul Pathways and Divine Adventures podcast. I am so excited to be here today with Becca Kuick, right?
Yep.
Am I saying it right?
That's
All
good,
right.
yep.
I'm very excited. She has her own intuitive readings. So I'm
Mhm.
going to let her explain a little bit about that, the intuitive readings, and just introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so my name is Rebecca or Becca. I am currently a card reader at Roxy's Rock Shop, although I do video appointments and in person as well. But there I have my set hours. So when I say card readings, it is a few different kinds of cards. So the basic one is tarot, which actually I didn't start out with at all. That's been a new thing in the last year is tarot for me, which is kind of surprising to a lot of people, but I started out with oracle cards. So I found that to be, it was the first cards I was shown, and I found them to be, just the image was really beautiful. And they're more open to interpretation.
Yes.
Versus tarot, which a lot of people don't know is more like a suit. So there's suits, there's numbers, and each one is very, very specific. So I find I tend to gravitate towards oracle cards, but
I do too.
tarot's been fun too. And I kind of will base it off the person who's coming in
Okay.
or the situation maybe they're talking about. And I don't know, I'll just kind of grab whatever resonates with me in terms of the person. I don't really have a set reason sometimes, just the vibes.
Hey, that's what works, right? You pick up so I don't know, like I mean I'm much more oracle than tarot, but I find that a lot of people I see do readings, they either start with oracle and they top it off with the tarot, or they start with tarot and top it off with the oracle. Do you
Yes.
combine
I
both,
mix
or?
cards, but I don't mix tarot with oracle.
Okay.
Because I like to do a certain set of readings, which is usually past, present, future with the same tarot deck.
Okay.
So I kind of like to keep it consistent because the suits kind of come up. Usually they kind of tell a story with all of them, but tarot I like to keep separate. But I know a lot of people who, jazz it up, and that's fine. I've had readings from other people that mix 5 decks, 4 decks. So but yeah, it's part of like how I do it. People will, wonder, okay, well, how are you getting your information? Or what do you believe? So that comes up a lot at the beginning of readings. I always like to gauge, have you had a reading before? And most people have. It's always fun when I'm somebody's first reading. They're so curious.
Yeah.
But what I like to say is I just keep it, very conversational. So we pick our deck, whether it be together or I go off the vibes, like I said.
Okay.
And then I say, let's go ahead and ground ourselves. So I'll say, feet on the floor, 2 deep breaths. I hand you the cards to hold and to channel your energy into it, which is something that's newer to me, is actually like letting people put their energy into the cards as well. So then I do the same, we switch cards. And, I just like to tell people my goal is I'm just the channel. Like I am just the messenger. So whatever you believe in, whether it's the universe, God, guides, your ancestors, higher consciousness, I mean, it's all relative in terms of what someone believes in doesn't affect the messages I'm giving them. So I just say I'm kind of tapping into that energy. I may feel that somebody's, grandma or something is present, and I kind of just gauge the person's level of comfort as to what we talk about, and I let them kind of guide the reading. I'm not so specific as well in terms of I don't just talk and then somebody listens. I always encourage, like, if you see something on the cards that I'm not seeing, like I had a lady, she's like, oh my God, peacock, that's my grandma. Like, and it showed up in 2 cards of a 3-card reading. And I was glad she said that because then it kind of guided us to what we were going to talk about.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. So do you have like any specific rituals or anything you do? I shouldn't say rituals, like ahead of time when you're preparing for a reading?
Yes, I do. Of course I do. Who doesn't? So what I like to do before I even get to the shop, or, whether it's video or I'm going to somebody's house, I like to just go ahead and I get my sage or Palo Santo and I just lay the cards out and I clear them. And I usually just say something, whether it's in my head or out loud, with the sage, just, let us clear these cards of all energy that does not serve the person I'm reading for. So something like that. Doesn't have to be so specific. And then I do ground myself. I do what's called a ground, clear, protect. I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with that. So I do a lot of grounding, kind of clearing out any energy that isn't going to serve me or someone else. And then that protection, because you never know what kind of energy is coming into a reading. So
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
What about after the reading?
I once again ground, clear,
Same
protect.
thing.
I keep it pretty simple.
This is good.
Yeah, I mean, when I get home, I have my ritual when I get home too. I go into the basement area, I have a coffee table, and I clear every single deck, ground myself, and just kind of reset.
Okay.
So I'm always doing that. I like to just, even if, whatever people believe, it's just kind of a mental thing, like a mental reset for me, so
Right.
that I feel clear and open to even do the readings.
Okay. So I know you dabble and you do other spiritual modalities as well, but
Yes.
what led you down this path to start doing the readings now?
Well, let's see. Well, the job itself, where I have set hours at the store, as you know, just kind of came out of nowhere.
Right. So did we say where you're at? I'm not sure
Yeah, I
we
said
did.
Roxy.
Okay.
Yeah, Roxy's Rock Shop. I think I mentioned it. So yeah, Roxy's Rock Shop on South Ridge Road, by Target East or Target West, excuse me. I always say the wrong one. But yeah, it came about in, I don't know, I felt like, for 2 years, I've been relatively like, I would say spiritually stagnant. I was on a really good path from like 2017 with a lot of progress in my art and my spirituality, my classes, and that kind of all shut down around, I mean, of course, with COVID, a lot of our events shut down. But the last 2 years in particular, I hadn't had a lot of like that spiritual momentum and meeting people that I had hoped to meet. And I had just been sitting around and I'm like, I need a job that pays me cash. I know the realm I want it to be in. I know I wanted it to be spiritual art, just that sort of stuff. But I didn't know where was I going to find this? And I wanted it to be close to my house. And those were some qualifications that seemed a little out of reach for me to have those things happen. But my friend Renee saw on Roxy's Rock Shop there, Gail, the owner, was advertising for a card reader, and she sends it to me and she goes, apply. And I go, okay.
Pretty simple.
All right. So I had a phone call with the owner, and I do card readings. I've done them since like 2000, I don't even know, 15, I think. But never as a job. But it was funny. So I'm like, okay. So I call the owner and talk to her, and she listens and she goes, well, sounds like you fit the bill. And I said, okay. And okay again. And then so I go into the store, and it was like a 5-minute interview where I read cards for her, and she liked it. So
here you are.
Here I am.
I love it. So what are your hours there?
I work twice a week, usually just noon to 5, but it is around other people's schedules too. So I like to joke that I'm their first on-call card reader, because I live so close by that people will walk into the store and need a card reading. And Crystal, the daughter's or the owner's granddaughter, always just calls me or texts me, and I'm like, if I can come, I come.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we added Reiki to my list of services, so that's going to be probably giving me some more hours too.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that? I think that's amazing.
A little bit, sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got certified. I can never remember. Did I met you in Sandy's class, right?
Yes. We both had the same Reiki Master teacher.
Yes.
Because when you were showing that video the other day, doing the video at Roxy's of your room, I was like,
yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, Bobby, I remember Bobby in that class. And I had thought it was earlier that we were certified in that, but apparently, I mean, that still was a while ago, 2018, but I was thinking it was earlier.
I think it was earlier too. And then every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, really? What? Okay.
Yeah, whatever, we got it. It's good.
It's there.
But yeah, so Reiki, I got certified, obviously 2018 with you in our friend Sandy's class. And it's something I have just done for other people, not to be paid. It's never been something where it's been a job for me. So this opportunity is really exciting. Because it kind of makes it more, concrete, more professional for me. And I'm curious, what doors it's going to open for me. I really don't know. But people who've come in and seen my table or have heard about it, even me posting online, are all seem very receptive. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
You're well known in the community.
Yeah, I guess so. I went to Aurora's Apothecary the other day, and I got talking to one of the people who work there, and I just laughed because he's like, oh, you're Rebecca, the card reader at Roxy's. I've heard of you. And I was like, oh, you have? Like, it sounded like what he heard was good. I don't know.
Did you ask?
I didn't. I was kind of just taken aback that, oh, I'm known around here apparently now.
I had someone say once to me, yeah, I think it was at a vendor show or something, like, we see your name like all over the place. And I'm like, "Really?"
I
I'm
know.
like, well, thanks.
Isn't that funny?
But then you're like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I always find that it's flattering, of course,
Mhm.
and then it's like a good thing to be proud of that, people know us and
And
we don't
remember,
yeah, and
yeah.
we don't realize always who's paying attention to us
Yeah.
or what impact we're making. So I always think that's really cool. But yeah, your name is everywhere. I was at a place, I was at Turtle Island and using the restroom, and I saw your just like, oh, hey Bobby.
I know they're starting to do that at Rooney too. And I was like, well, I guess if there's no other place to put my
Yeah.
sign, it's in the basement.
Well, I did see it.
Yeah. So, hey, well, we all have to go to the
Your
bathroom at
name
some
really, your
point.
name really is everywhere.
If you happen to be in there a while, you're really gonna read it.
Yes.
Wait, we get off track, but I love it. So yeah, so one of some of the other questions is just like, what inspires you? Like, you talked about COVID and stepping back. Like, what just inspires you to keep going forward?
Well, one of the main things I think that inspires me is obviously the people I meet.
Yeah.
Like I've met a lot of like-minded people. So I know these people are out there, and you don't always know like how you're going to connect with them. So I like to just, like I said, do you want to they asked, do you want to do Reiki? Sure. Do you want to read cards? Sure. I like to just say yes to things in the realm of what I want to have my life be. So for me, I may have to get a job eventually that isn't exactly, in the spiritual realm, or you know what I mean. We've talked about to kind of supplement that income.
Yeah.
But that's kind of just a means to an end. I feel like my goal, what drives me is meeting, like I said, meeting people. And then Green Bay is getting better, but I think us like-minded people, when we get together, we have so many good ideas and we are creating like the future of the spiritual community here.
I believe I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I think the work we do is important. I've noticed specifically in card readings that a lot of my readings, we'll do the reading, but then we chat afterwards about things. And it can really vary between they just are looking like they don't know where to go for, like, how do I learn to read cards? Or, they never heard a singing bowl and I play them outside my little room.
I love it.
But sometimes it just ends up into like this spiritual coaching, which is a big need I'm finding. I'd say 80% of my readings, people kind of just don't know where to start, but
They're
they
looking
want
for
to,
advice.
they want to dabble in it. And then a lot of it is there's, people who are scared, they think what we do is scary, like tarot. Oh, that's the devil.
It's taboo.
Yeah.
Right? I know it's the devil's witch's work.
So they're afraid, especially if they grew up in a religious family, they're afraid what people are going to think.
But I'm surprised, and I'm sure you are too, like
Mhm.
how many people actually that I have as Reiki clients, that are very religious.
Yes.
Because it all started out the same, and
Mhm.
it still is. Whether you want to call it God,
Mhm.
divine being, spirit, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Whatever your religion calls for.
Mhm.
I think we in our spiritual world, we just embrace all of it.
Yeah.
And we allow people to have whatever religion they want to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in my last reading I had the other day, Friday, the woman was very religious, but used tarot cards. And I think that's a lot of people think as well. And I like to teach people that's not necessarily it's not how it has to be at all, in my opinion, but they feel like they have to be religious or they have to be spiritual. Well, then what the heck does spiritual mean? And then how does that how do you integrate those things? So yeah, a lot of my conversations are like that. I think I bring a safe space as well for people to talk about all the weird stuff they want to talk about. Weird to me, it's not weird, but they talk about like their visitation dreams or like, like what's that called? Like the out of body experience. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So people will talk to me about all kinds of things, and I feel very honored that I'm a safe space for people to do that. So that really motivates me. I think that, us people in the community, we're making an impact.
But you give off, I mean, and I've known Rebecca for quite some time, and you give off that vibe. It's a very safe space when people come and talk to you.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes our community, the spiritual community, so special is we all want to honor the confidentiality of someone. And I have people who are like, well, this may sound dumb or weird. I'm like, no.
If somebody starts something out that way, I'm like, spill it. That's the sign that you need to tell me.
Yes.
I get a lot of people that after they talk to me, like, I don't know why I told you that. And I'm like, I don't either, but that's okay because I was meant to be here to hear it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I also feel like it heals me to do the card readings. I mean, I think, I used to be a social worker, so I've encountered a lot of things both in my professional life and in my personal life that I feel like what people bring to the table is similar to questions, that it's career, it's love, it's family, it's health, it's all this stuff that people would talk about in therapy as well. So I'm not a therapist, but I kind of fill that
We
role
play
for
that
some
role.
people.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you understand
When you
that.
do Reiki, you'll find that,
Yeah.
and that's always how people, like, when they come to do Reiki, like, if your appointment's at an hour,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you allow at least an hour and a half.
Yep.
Because we're gonna be talking, especially if you're new.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. And yeah, it's the topics that come up, I have found in terms of healing for me, when it's appropriate, I will, kind of divulge some of my personal life in conversation. And I think, I have a pretty good gauge of like what's, appropriate, what's not. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
some people, I try not to like, this is your reading, I'm not gonna like trauma dump on you. But sometimes it's relevant and people feel very alone. So it's a kind of a mix of like I'm guiding people spiritually, kind of like coaching them, doing the fun readings and getting to know people, and then also helping them. I don't know if I feel I've had people say like, oh, you have like a lot of wisdom, and I don't feel old enough to have wisdom. I don't, and then I think to myself, who needs like what I have to say? But I try to push that out of my mind because
it's our own self-doubt.
yeah, I'm like, well, apparently people do need what I have to say. So
And it's like, and I think you hit on the key thing, because I just went through that with my sisters. Sometimes people, it's nice to open up and be vulnerable, as hard as it can be,
Mhm.
because like you said, you don't want to trauma dump on someone else.
right.
But at the same time, it makes people go, oh my gosh, they are real. They go through the same
Mhm.
things, and they're not excluded from that.
Yep.
So it's
The
kind of
healers
makes you more
need heal.
relatable.
Yeah, the healers need healing.
We all do. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm definitely, my life is far from perfect, but yeah, I think you and I do a good job of trying to keep, there's always something that's difficult, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how it is. And
That's life.
although it sucks, it's like I'd like to I try to like, I don't know, it sounds cheesy, like bring the light and the love to people the best I can.
And I appreciate her, because I have some really, like, a handful of close friends. I like every day when I was put my first post out there, it was like, how are you doing today? I'm like, thank you for checking, because it just really means a lot,
Yeah.
that someone cares.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad that you were met with that from not just me, but we all do. We care about you and your family.
We all, that's why we have such a close knit.
Yeah.
I feel like a really good spiritual community.
Mhm.
So I know we talked about some misconceptions that people have, like that this is evil, or it's the devil at work.
Yep.
Or whatever. What other misconceptions have you come across?
Their misconceptions. I think
Uh-oh.
I laugh.
Good, I
I
can't
think
wait.
the laugh. I think that just people think you're crazy. Like
Yeah.
if you, I am no longer. I no longer filter what I say about my beliefs. I always say that. Although I do card readings, okay, I do Reiki. I'm involved in the spiritual community, and do all these events and things like that, and attend events. I always say I still don't know. I still don't know. So I think a lot of the misconception is people will like they want you to prove it. I've noticed. Like I actually had a 15-year-old come in with his foster mom, and they did a reading, and he's like, "All right, prove it to me." And I'm like, I always say, "Well, I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm here to just, and then I answer questions based on what they need." But I do find a lot of people, they might think it's crazy. So obviously we know people think it's evil. Right? It's not. I have found it to be one of the most beautiful healing spiritual tools I've ever used. So I always just disagree with that one. And then, yeah, it's just that people think that because we do this, we know everything, we have all the answers, or we're healed completely. And, and we're all right. We're healed maybe more than most, maybe. I don't
We're all
know.
still going
I
through
think
it, though,
we're all
right?
going through it, but those would be the main thing. Like when I do, I feel like when I do open up to people, they're like, oh my gosh, you don't present that way. You would never expect that. And I think that's good for people to see, like that we don't look like today I look kind of hippie, but
She always looks
but like I don't, oh thank you. I don't present like when I first started, they kind of expected me to use like a crystal ball and to have a velvet tablecloth, and that's fine. I do have those things, but they're not me.
Right.
I like when I feel like I look overall like normal. And I think that like when I met our friend Sandy, she really opened up my eyes to the spiritual world and cards. And when she spoke to me, it was like, oh my gosh, I was raised Roman Catholic and none of it ever made sense. And then I talked to our friend Sandy, who is a medium, went there for a reading with her 2015, and she changed my life. Like she opened, yeah, she really did. So yeah, but one of the things that appealed to me is that she just looked like me and she talked like me. And but she's talking about these things that I had never heard anybody talk about so freely. And I was like, all right. And then, yeah, meeting her and she laughed. She's like, no, no, that's not true. I don't know. She doesn't want to take the compliment, but I say to her, I'm like,
none of us, I feel like
no.
we're like, we're just doing
But
it.
I'm just like, because I do credit her. If I didn't meet her in 2015, my friend and I went to do a birthday reading with her at her house. Never met her before. And it was a mediumship reading and she talks to guides as well. And that reading, like I said, meeting her and that reading changed the entire trajectory of my life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I bring up a good point, but we look normal.
Yeah, we look normal. People are like, oh, what's up with this person? She doesn't look like a witch.
Expect you to look like a witch or a hippie or all tattooed out head to toe. And a lot of us do have tattoos and stuff, but everything is spiritual meaning.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yeah, we can look like a lot of different things. And I think that's good for people to see. I have my bell bottoms, but I also, look like, wear leggings and I don't wear a witch hat or have, stuff like that. But I do get, I know.
Sell it? No, I'm just kidding.
It's in the basement in my Halloween box.
We're big Halloween fans.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I think that's about it. Just the misconceptions. I think seeing that we're normal people and that we have normal lives and just use this stuff, and just our attitudes, shows people that this is good stuff. The more we are out there with it, the more people are like, huh, what's she up to? Like, well, Rebecca or Bobby seems like they're doing some cool things. Like, what's that all about? I'm always surprised who's watching me.
Yep. You never know, right? You just never know.
And I did lose some friends too on Facebook when I came out. Like, which I don't care. It's fine. They're not my people. But I was nervous.
I've run into the same.
Yeah, I personally, so for what I talk about, like we should, not be afraid and all this stuff. I have fears too. I mean, the lady, one of the ladies who was maybe going to do card readings at Roxy's, I guess a lot of people don't want to be out there publicly. It's like a secret. So they didn't want to be advertised.
Okay.
And I have been doing spiritual stuff for a while, of course, years, but I wasn't like out there as much. So this was me within a couple days, like, oh shoot, I have to have a page. They're going to promote me. I'm going to have to be out there and tell everybody all the crazy stuff I do and believe. And like, it's just going to be out there. But I tell you, it was incredibly liberating. It really was.
It feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was like, well, I was just talking about this. I thought it was funny that, here I was all nervous about it. And I'm like, nope, I'm doing it anyway. And I did it. And then a lot of people, like, one, either they thought it was really cool and had questions and they've come to see me and it's been great. Or they're just like, yeah, that makes sense for you. Or they unfriended me.
Or the three things.
It was liberating because I was just like, wow, I guess I can really do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I was like, here, I was scared and this was like the weirdest stuff I'd ever put out there, which I don't think it's weird, but I'm like, people are going to judge me.
Yep.
And I did it anyway. And it's really just been great. And like the 5 people who got rid of me, I don't know. That's okay.
It was like those who are meant to be in your life will be in your life.
Yeah, they've been replaced with more people.
Exactly. You find your tribe. And if a true friend is someone that's going to accept you no matter what you're doing and support you. And they may not understand it, but so that's what we're saying. I always say find my tribe.
Yeah.
Because I just
and we do. We figure it out.
We do. I just love that. All right. So how do you see in this area, I guess in particular, like we talked about our spiritual community. Now, how do you see it evolving in this area?
Well, I think that, so we have that networking group now. So Nicole and Brett from Runic started this networking group of healers. So we got together, I think just twice, and I was only there for one. But that meeting of all the different healers and
the modalities.
Yes, it was, I hadn't felt so alive as I had in that room for the longest time.
That's the one we had at Turtle Island. That's the one I went to.
I was just like that, like just lit me up to just see this community of people, and Nicole and Brett are branching out to include the whole Fox Cities area.
Right.
Because we've talked about it, we talked about the meeting. It's like we're all out there, but we don't all know each other.
Right.
And it can be very lonely. And like, oh my gosh, like, I used to think there's nothing here for me in Green Bay. I'm not gonna find it. I had like a kind of like not so much a negative attitude, but a sad attitude. Cause it just like, if I always felt like Green Bay wasn't for me. I really didn't. I didn't think that, the art community wasn't there, the health and nutrition, the spiritual community, I didn't feel supported, or I had already worked at places that I knew, like, well, it ran its course.
We're done.
You meet who you're gonna meet and then you move along. But I think one of the things that has kept, I've had to stay here for a variety of reasons, but one of the things that makes me not want to move now is because of the momentum we've created, because of meeting all these healers, and even just, being at that meeting, so many of us were collaborating and planning, and we have our group. And I just think my hope is, if we're not silenced, over time, that we will be, we're growing. I see it every day that I read that people are looking for what we're
part of the spiritual resistance.
We kind of are. Well, yeah, because we were talking about, was that at your class where they were outside protesting?
No, that was at Runic and
Yeah.
Emily's class. And I can't remember what class she was doing, but it just happened to fall on that same night.
Yeah,
And
I know there was protesters at Runic Apothecary protesting witches.
It's really
which,
sad.
I mean, they didn't. Yeah, it's very sad,
Yeah,
and
but it
they
just shows
they
how much-
basically, they're scared.
Yeah, and there's so much that just, to me, that's how much more education there needs to be out
Yes.
there to help them understand we're on the same side.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, it's love. It's
Yeah,
love.
It's a love and light. Like, that's all we preach is love and light.
We just have different tools of
Yeah.
sharing it. And I think it's very fear-based. It's always been fear-based. And I have read some things online actually before that happened at Runic, where they had the protesters. I had just read the week before that there were, I don't know what state, and I was just like, oh.
And we've started to see, there has been, my cat is
Oh,
trying to eat my cords over
the kitty's here.
She's eating my cords. Like we've had not really protests, but there have been some churches around this area who have been very against anything in the spiritual community. I haven't heard a lot lately.
Yeah.
And I think it helped because when they had their big to-do-da, we just kind of sat back. We didn't push our agenda. We didn't go, hey, let's have we just sat back and go, you do your thing.
Yeah.
We're here if you want to talk.
Yeah. And I think the more people who are out there like us, like actually not hiding and okay with our names being out there and sharing what we do, the more, like I mentioned, the safe spaces there are, and we don't have to meet that with anger either.
No, and we shouldn't.
I met it with sadness. I wasn't there, but when I saw the picture of the woman, she looked so angry. And
why?
It made me so sad because it's like, this is the most peaceful thing that you just don't understand,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we're part of the spiritual resistance. What I
love it.
I have on Instagram, I'm a tree hugger and spiritual rebel or something like that. Oh, that was the other thing I was gonna say with talking about like a misconception, speaking of spiritual rebel, because I do everything the way people say, oh, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do it that way, or that's bad luck. And I'm like, I don't know.
No rule.
I always say I'm not worried about it. I was some lady told me I was bad luck because I read my own cards. I don't know, this was a couple
You do your own cards.
I know. But it's funny working at Roxy's. Crystal and I, the owner's granddaughter, her and I hear so many things about superstitions.
Okay.
And I am not a superstitious person. And people sometimes get that confused. We're like, well, how can you believe in some metaphysical things or spirituality, but you're not superstitious? And I'm like, well, I don't believe that if I read my own cards, that I'm bad luck. But I kind of made a joke to the woman. She's like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, she's like, it's bad luck. I go, oh, well, then I'm screwed. And then she just looked at me and then she just wouldn't come by me again.
I love it.
I was bad luck and she just wanted to get away.
We have to have a sense of humor in this language.
Yeah.
And I have a really sense of humor. So
I think our sense of humor aligns.
But you have to.
But people will say, you have to clear your cards a certain way, or you have to
cut the deck
do a crystal grid a certain way. And I mean, there's basics. Absolutely. But I mean, in a pinch, if I want to like, clear something, I might just clear it mentally. I don't necessarily need the pomp and circumstance of the actual sage and the whole thing. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Just like with Reiki, and I have people ask me that all the
Mm-hmm.
time, and I've created my own Reiki binders for when I teach,
Mhm.
but I'm like, and I always tell them like, this is what I'm putting in my book.
Yep.
This is not verbatim. Like,
Right.
this is my thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and this is kind of the information I've gleaned. There is no right or wrong way. There's no right or wrong way where you want to do hand placements around
No.
somebody to send energy.
No.
There isn't. So
There's no wrong or right way to read cards. I read
Yeah.
cards differently than a lot of people.
right.
And also one thing I always like to say, and this has been my advice to myself, and this goes for nutrition, spirituality, art, anything like that, is I just say like add one thing. So like if you're sitting in front of me, or like when I would teach, kombucha classes or gut health classes, people are like, well, I'm not healthy. So maybe you're not in a spiritual place you want to be, you're not in a physical place you want to be. Well, and they look at me, well, here you are, with all these tools and you seem to know what you're talking about and all this stuff. And it's like, well, here, me today is not me in 2013.
Right.
Like me nutritionally, wellness, spirituality, art, none of it. So like if you met me back then, I mean, I was still me, but I was just looking to add that one thing, which I always say like just add the one thing. So spirituality, just do cards. You don't even have to be good at it. Use the book. Use the
Right.
book and keep at it. I used to, when I started cards, it was like my church. So it was once a week on Monday, I would sit and do a card spread for myself and write it down and take a picture of it to remember the cards. And that would set the tone for my week. And that was all I did. So it kind of snowballs from there. I like to say too, do something for 3 months. Like anybody can do
Something.
most things for 3 months. And a lot of times those habits might stick.
They do.
Or you'll be like, well, maybe I don't like cards, or maybe I don't like kombucha, and now I'm going to try this instead, which is also in that same arena of health and wellness.
I'm
So,
glad you bring that up because I've had people ask me like, well, because I have transitioned and I've gone into different areas. I mean, the Reiki and then the quantum hypnosis and then to the animal Reiki. And now I'm taking the end of life pet dual. I'm like, but they're all interrelated. But
Yeah.
that's how, just like anyone else in the world, you go and you do a job and that's how you find out if you like it or not.
Right.
So I may be taking this class now and go, and I get done and go, it's not a service I'm going to offer. I got my business cards now, but
Right. Yeah.
that's how we learn. It's
You
no
never
different.
know. Yeah, you never know what's going to interest you or where things are going to go. And I really like, over the years, just come to I say yes. If it feels right, I say yes. I try to trust my intuition and that I do know when something maybe isn't aligning with me, but I also try to give things chances,
Yeah.
as we know. But yeah, just to say yes to things and to be curious. When I started out, so I met Sandy, and then I had always like resonated. I walked past 9th Street Wellness, which is where you and I met, and I taught classes there and met a lot of my close friends today. But I just would always walk past it by my old house, and I'm like, I need to go in there for some reason. I didn't know why. And then one year I decided to make goals for myself, and I picked a word of the year, and the word was joy. And my goal was twice a month to go to anything that like would spark joy, like an event. So that was what I really put my effort into. And yeah, it led me to trying a lot of different things. Like if something caught my eye, I tried it. I would say 90% of the things I tried, I liked. Do I offer them? No, not necessarily, but there were very few things that I didn't enjoy, and it really like shows you what you like and what you don't, and you don't know until you try. So
And sometimes I feel like, no, I don't have to offer it. I can just incorporate.
Yeah.
I took a 3-day Celtic shamanism class. I don't plan on offering anything, it wasn't a certification class, but it just it made me more rounded and just to learn a little bit more to incorporate what I want to do. So yeah, it's just like
Yeah. Oh, I'm always I love to learn about all kinds of weird, like I always say weird stuff. I gotta stop using that word. I say weird because everybody, a lot of people do think it is. But I love talking to people and going to classes and hearing their stories they don't tell to a lot of people. And then there's no wrong way to do spirituality is
There
what
isn't.
I guess to circle back is I encourage people, do your best to not be afraid, add one thing, and be curious.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to know it all or that I know it all, or, it's like,
We
don't think that I'm this person who
Yeah.
you're not going to match up to my level and you're never going to be at that level. Even if you aren't, whatever level somebody might consider me at, who cares? You know what I mean? It's okay. Like,
Right. Everyone, I always say like everyone has their special, unique gifts.
yeah.
I mean, we all kind of have the same gifts, but it's just which ones are we supposed to bring forward in this
Mhm.
lifetime?
Yeah.
And I think that like I don't put anyone on that pedestal.
Mhm.
Like, like we're all like on that equal, like but you have that talent and I have this talent and
Mhm.
you have that talent. And together, just think of the amazing things we can do.
Yeah.
So
Well, even, yeah, and so like meeting people like you and the like-minded people makes me really happy, especially lately because I noticed, so here I was offered at Roxy's that I can do Reiki, okay? That was not necessarily in my plans for a job, and I didn't have to worry once about any of the people I know who do Reiki who would be jealous of me.
Yep.
You popped into my head and all I could think was, oh my gosh, she's
so
but
excited.
but the only reason you popped into my head was because I was excited because now I get to do something like you do and I can get advice from you. So yeah, I think it's important, yeah, like to collaborate with
Yeah.
people and not be so competitive. Like encourage each other. You're the way you do Reiki is not the same way as I do
We
it.
all do it different.
You
I mean,
know?
I teach it and then I tell the people that I teach, like, go out and find your own way
Yeah.
to do it.
Mhm.
Because you're gonna, there's
Yeah,
no
I
right or
think-
wrong way, and you're gonna find what works for you.
Yeah, and I think, I have noticed in this community, like people will be surprised sometimes, and I don't ever like specify who or situations, but there is competition in this area.
There is, yeah.
I don't associate with the people who want to compete with me anymore. Because I truly do believe there's room for everybody.
I do too.
So that used to be a deterrent or worry for me in Green Bay as well, is like I would run into some people normally, I mean, and it's very few negative people, but
we do have
they
them.
stand out and yeah, I'm just like, well, I don't like this competition. Maybe I need to go somewhere else. But the truth is there's gonna be competition wherever we
you
go.
So even in the spirituality world, we still have
People will laugh. They're like, really? There's drama in the world. I'm like, oh, you have no idea. There are people that they've caught the falling outs and it's the same as everywhere else.
And there's little groups.
Like I always laugh. There was one and it just was two people that both disagreed on
I gotta hear
so
that.
dumb. It's so dumb. And sorry if the people watching know what I'm talking about, but we called it the big Reiki fight of 2019 because
Oh, wow.
the chakras spin, like they were arguing, people were arguing just like about chakras and like how they're supposed to feel and look, and it was during a Reiki share, and I'm just like, it doesn't matter. We don't need to fight about it. And I think that was probably they were both having bad days, and who knows what it was all about. But yeah, it's just kind of funny. It's like I hate to laugh. But it's like we don't need to fight about the way to do Reiki, or I think a lot of it can be too, not necessarily the situation, but like ego gets in the way.
Oh, and I teach that in my Reiki 3 class
Yeah.
about, because ego goes both ways.
Yes.
Ego can make you out there where you offend people or you think you know it all, or it can work the other way. If someone has a big ego, it can just stunt your growth because you don't feel you know anything. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I've seen that in the art community and the spiritual community in particular, that where I've run into it is just, there is, you can tell some, and we are not immune to ego. We all have ego.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but it is a thing, it's like people do think, goes back to the, not superstition necessarily, but just like there's these rules, we have to do it this way, and this is what I read, and this is what I believe. It's like, well, there's room to listen to everything. We don't need to be such sticklers that, it's like I came to spirituality because I don't like religion. I don't want to be told there's only one way,
Right.
So for me, I get really defensive sometimes about when people, I'm usually good enough to just kind of laugh it off, but sometimes I'm like, no, don't tell me what to do. Make me want to do that. Make me want to do that.
Like that, yeah. It's like you tell me not to do something. And that's how I ended up with my tattoo when I was married at the time.
Oh my gosh.
And my husband said no, and I went, okay. And then I went, oh, got a tattoo.
One of the best ways to motivate me to do something is to tell me I can't do it.
Yep, exactly. And I always say
within reason.
Yeah. Let's test that.
Oh God.
It's all about, and I know again, I laugh. So number one for me, it's all about intention.
Yeah.
And so if your intention is good, I don't care if you say chakras spinning left is what's bringing in the energy, or
Mhm.
chakras spinning or clockwise or counter.
Mhm.
It's all about intention.
Yeah,
And the truth is, we know, but we don't know.
right.
And we won't know until we're gone from this form on earth.
Mhm.
And then it's.
And then we're not gonna be fighting about it anyway.
Right, right,
Because we're
so
gonna
who
be
cares?
like orbs of love and light. Orbs of love and light.
It won't matter. We're like, hey, look, your ball's spinning that way.
Like, it really does break down to that. It's like, what do we decide matters here?
And I just learned like that's the hardest. It comes back to holding space with that person too.
Yeah.
And you know, however you want to teach it, that's okay. It's cool. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, I don't either. I think we should all collaborate and we all have stuff to offer each other, and it's better to get along and do that than to be like, no, I'm better than you, or I know more than you. And I know a lot of this is easier said than done, but I noticed as I've gotten older, I'm much more chill about you do you, I'll do me. You got
Okay.
questions, I'm happy to help, and I try to be pretty open. I would never tell somebody, it would have to be pretty bad for me to say, don't do that. I have some instances where I have said, please, please don't do those things, but
So,
that's neither here.
If you're doing something in the bad realm.
Yeah, so I don't tell people, I'm always like, yeah, I'm open and I like to hear and see other people, the ways of doing things, even reading the cards, like, the owner was like, well, I like when people let me touch the cards. And I was like, oh, I'm not used to that. I don't like that. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt anything. And actually I decided I like it, but I added my own spin on it. So, even though I was like, no, I'm not open to that. I think I did kind of come around. I'm like, well, what's it going to hurt? I think we learn things, little things from other people. Would I read cards like her? Probably not, but adding that in is part of her and was a good suggestion. And she's happy I do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that I was not resistant to it.
Open-minded enough.
Yeah.
So now we've kind of circled back around the cards. So I want to talk
Yes.
about this because I've had a reading from you, but it was online.
Mhm.
So can you talk a little bit about what people expect if they do it online with you?
Okay. So most people, when I rarely start out with a video reading unless it's somebody in the spiritual world like you, because you're not gonna, it's once again kind of like people want you to prove it, or they think that energy, like I'm only gonna be able to tap in, however I want to say it, like tap into their energy or those, guides, spirit, whatever you want to say, is like if I'm there with you. And I used to kind of feel that way as well. Like when I went to Sandy, I was like, well, no, it can't be video. Like I've got to be there. But the reality of it is, spirit's everywhere. Energy is everywhere. So it's once again, like you said, circle to that word intention. So for a video reading, most people, like I said, they'll come to me in person first. And then they're more comfortable with me and I explain it. Because a lot of people will stop in, they're not from around town, especially with the draft. A lot of people I read for aren't from here. So I told them about video readings. And they're intrigued. And I just say it's, the same thing. I set up a nice area. We do the grounding, we choose the cards, keep it conversational. It's as if, just pretend that we're together, and if they need, I always say to people, like, if you feel like I'm not tapping into the right guidance or energy, whatever you want to call it, I can always pull a clarifying card. We can always stop. We can even change decks. Like I've had people halfway through where they're like, I don't like the energy of this deck.
Oh, wow.
And I'll say, okay, that happened once where the lady she just wasn't, it was somebody you knew actually, but we stopped and I was fine with it. I'm like, you can take your time, walk around the store, I'll clear everything out. That's fine. So I try to be flexible, but for me, a video reading, it makes no difference.
Okay.
And I find that with a lot of my friends who are readers or mediums or whatever, even just, Reiki, like I don't have to be there for it.
I've done distance Reiki for people,
Yeah.
and I just put on a really nice video and
Yeah.
music, and then I shut my camera off so I don't make them feel odd.
Yeah.
And then, I circle back around at the end and I kind of slowly wake them up because sometimes they fall asleep.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
I love. And I'm like, are you still there?
That means you did a good job.
Yes.
That or if they're crying.
Yeah.
Which I always
yeah,
think is funny because when I did your we really get to people's emotions. Like we access those intense happiness and sadness, all those things with what we do. And
It's
it's
amazing, yeah.
beautiful.
Mhm.
But I was laughing because when I got home, I was talking about how I cried during your sound bath. It was one of the most beautiful, it was a spiritual experience that I was just like letting the emotions like flow out of me. I just felt like there was a lot of just stuck emotions that came
You had a
out.
lot going on
Yeah.
that day though.
Yes, it was a lot. And And then I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'm embarrassed I was crying or whatever. And then I thought to myself, no, because if somebody is having that emotional response to a reading that I'm doing, I'm never
It's like a
judgment. Yeah,
compliment.
it is a
Yeah.
compliment. So I've reframed that, and I will say right away when I never would shame someone for crying anyway. But I'm like, I kind of like looked at myself with that same compassion, like, oh, well, when people cry, I get people cry at least once, twice a week. And you give the Kleenex, and if you need a hug, you need a hug, and we talk about it. But just it's cleansing.
It's very cleansing.
Yeah.
That's kind of what got me into deciding, oh, I want to retire because I want to do something that makes a difference.
Mhm.
So I've only, my parents are only in their 70s, and
Mhm.
I've only got 20 years.
Yeah.
And one of the very few first meditations I did, this gal started crying halfway through, and I was like, oh my God, I was so horrified.
Yeah.
Like, what did I do?
What did I do wrong? It's like you didn't do anything wrong.
No, so
You
I
did the
know what you
opposite.
mean.
It was great.
So it is a good feeling, and because
Yeah.
they're releasing something that needed to be released, and that's why they're
Yeah.
coming to you.
And people, I notice like the first thing out of people's mouth, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's like, no, never be sorry. Never be sorry for crying.
I tell the people that, like, always when I do sound baths or the meditation, like, you know what? If you need a tissue, just raise your hand.
Yep.
If everyone's laying down, typically with the
Yep.
mask on, like raise your hand, and I will silently bring you over a tissue. And if you need to leave the room, that's okay, whatever.
Yep.
But don't hold it back,
No.
because that just traps the progression that you're going to make in
Right.
healing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Let it
it's
out.
beautiful.
Just let it
I
out.
love it.
Anyway,
love it.
circle. I don't know where I went with that, but
So, oh my goodness. So, I think we've talked about this kind of. So, any pieces of knowledge that you want to pass along to encourage others who are, you touched on it, struggling with their spirituality gifts, and like, do I do cards? Do I do this? Like,
yeah, I say to people, whatever resonates with you. If it's literally just a rock that you saw at the store, and like I'll keep rocks on my table, and I'll encourage people to hold the rock. And it's almost like a meditation, it's a grounding thing. And people don't even realize they're doing it until I point it out. I'm like, so if you took a rock and you're holding it during the reading for comfort, that you're meditating right now.
Yeah.
That is a grounding technique that you're using. So right there, let's not, it's not an overwhelming thing to think about. It's just that little thing. So yeah, it's like, pick one thing always.
I love how you say that. Yeah, pick one thing.
And don't be scared. Don't be scared to do it wrong. So say you pick up a rock and you hold it and you're like, I don't feel grounded. That's okay. Try it again. Or maybe it's not for you. So I think that would be one of the big ones. Like I said, I always encourage people, like I'll list down for people, I'll write it down, like all the different metaphysical places in town or whatever they're looking for, that in talking with somebody, if I'm like, oh, I think that would be a good fit for you, or I know this person does this there, this person does that, which kind of, it helps our community that's looking to connect spiritually, but it also helps connect us too, that we're referring to each other. But yeah, I say, be open. Don't worry if you're going to go. So one thing I would say, main thing for me, is go to things alone. Go to things alone. I started going to things alone. I knew nobody when I walked into 9th Street Wellness.
Me neither. It was like,
I remember my first class. It was the chakra class with Lori Stimpson.
Miss her.
Yeah, that was my first class. And I didn't meet anybody at that class that I kept in touch with, aside from her a little bit. But yeah, just go places alone. Don't be afraid to do that. You'll meet your people. So that's a big thing I think for a lot of people to overcome, is the fear of doing stuff alone. And then just the fear of doing new things in general. But the reason I ended up teaching at 9th Street was because I took the classes and learned how to ferment foods. And I'd gone to so many classes there that they just started to know me. So that was another job that I kind of just fell into, where they lost the people who taught. And I'm like, I'm just going to ask. So I walked in, it was like almost 9 o'clock one evening on like a Thursday. And I walk in and the owner's there and I'm like, hey, so she's like, oh, hey. And she didn't even really remember my name, but she knew me. And I'm like, hey, I hear that you lost your instructors. And she goes, yeah. I said, well, if you need somebody, I'm somebody.
I love that.
And she goes, oh, okay. And that was it. It was the same sort of thing.
Sounds like her.
I was like, I always, one of the things, so like surrounding this is like one thing I like to say in life is like, don't be afraid to ask. You'll be surprised at how many people say yes, or know somebody who will say yes to you. You do need to, I have had to develop a thicker skin, but people will see things that I do and be like, wow, like you're here. I'd like to be there. I'd like to teach here, this, that, whatever. It's like, I think, how do you get these people to agree to this? How do you meet these people? I'm like, because I go places myself, not afraid to try new things. And that's not even true. I am. I just do it anyway.
Right.
And then I am afraid to ask, but I ask people.
You don't let fearful, you don't
no.
let fear hold you back.
So I'm just like, what's the worst if you don't? So my life motto is if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And that pushing past that limiting belief has gotten me to so many places I would have never thought. But what people don't see is every 4 times I ask somebody, like 3 people might reject me, 2 people might reject me. People don't see that. They see me doing the events. They see me looking like I have it all together. But the reality of it is like, you didn't see the rejections.
Right.
You didn't see the other parts of it.
And we all have it, right?
Yeah.
And
But I think, pushing past the fear of being alone, rejection, failing. Ask. Those are my big life
I would
lessons
say
that I'll
what's
pass down to my children and anyone who will listen to me.
what's the worst thing that's gonna happen when you ask? No.
Right.
That's
But we internalize that,
We do.
I don't so much anymore, but I'm
It's
not.
like you feel like a failure. It's like you're not a failure. Just
They're
the
not-
opportunity is not
Yeah.
right at that place, and that's spirit letting you know this is not the
Yeah.
place right now for you.
I've had people straight up ignore me and you just, okay. I don't know. I have that attitude now. I like it. I like it about myself as I get older. Like same with the art community. And I had somebody the other day just straight up tell me they didn't like a piece of this yarn that I did a yarn hanging. And they're like, I don't like that. And I said, okay, I do. And that was it.
It's like
I'm glad that I care less about what people think nowadays, but it never quite goes away, but
but
it's easier.
it gets easier, and I think the more spiritual we get,
Mhm.
and the more like-minded people we meet, the easier it gets. It's never, like you said, never totally goes away, and it's still hard,
Mhm.
but you just
Yeah.
let things roll.
Mhm.
So I love that.
I try to just be my authentic, sometimes crazy, annoying self, and whoever loves me, whoever still likes me.
Well, I always say, we always laugh because we always say we have this Jackson warp sense of humor. It's
Yeah.
like whoever likes me at the end of the
I'll
day.
just be as weird as I want to be, and whoever sticks around sticks around.
Weird. I know. You want to talk about litter box a little bit?
Sure, yes. So that's one thing, I talk about different events I do. So not related to my
It's not related
readings,
to this, but
I'll promote it because it is another one of my things that I do. So me and 3 other women, she actually was this woman, her name's Patty, that I got to talking to, was my pharmacist. And I don't know, I'm feeling really grateful lately in my life because I'm kind of seeing things 2 years out from when I was kind of struggling with some things with my son and personal things. I'm kind of seeing now how I'm glad that some of the stuff happened, and like I'm grateful a lot of things didn't work out the way they did, because I certainly wouldn't be here today, or we met a long time ago, but just to reconnect wouldn't have happened the way it did.
Yes.
But yeah, I met Patty. She was a pharmacist when my son was struggling with some major mental health issues, and her daughter is similar, and we got to talking because I was there like almost every other day just with these meds, and I was so frustrated and I was tired, and but because of his issues, which he's doing better. He can control his emotions more as he grows up. But because of that, I met Patty and we got to talking, and it was like just the highlight of my day to go see her. Really, it was when I
love
would,
that.
and we have a lot in common. And then one day we just got to talking about parks and how they're messy. And I'm, like I said, I call myself a tree hugger and I pick up litter all the time. It just drives me nuts. So apparently that bothered her too, and another pharmacy tech and her sister. So we created this group called the Litter Bugs. And what we do is we just pick parks that, we're in charge of. So there's 4 of us. So we each pick dates and we advertise it. We have our little like litter grabbers and bags and our
I love
like the orange vest, so people know. We got business cards because a lot of people ask us what we're doing at the park, and then they'll, they don't remember necessarily what our group name is. So yeah, it's grown. We clean up a park for about, usually like kids tap out at like 40 minutes into cleaning. But it's just a social thing. You do not have to have kids to come. It's just a group of people who pick up litter, and it's a social thing. You can meet people, kids can play. Then we have some snacks and take a picture, and that's it.
I love it.
It's grown a lot. I was shocked. I don't know. It was another one of those things that just happened, and I'm like, oh, well, this is really cool. And it's a way to bring our community together. you know.
And keep it cleaner.
Yeah, so that's my litter bugs. I like to clean up
We'll put
trash.
something at the end
Yeah,
of that.
I like to clean up trash. Keep our home clean.
So, we probably touched on this too, but so what are you looking forward to accomplishing? I guess going forward, like in the next year or two, anything specific, or you just kind of let it go, like you said, and just whatever falls?
I'm trying to let go and like as much as possible to what's going to happen. I feel like I'm in a space in my life where I know I mean, I have ideas of what I'd want to do. Like my dream would be to have a wellness spiritual arts center with classes and just like all the like-minded people that I really like to work with that aren't competitive, you know, that we can all work together and have like beautiful art on the walls and just have it be a really nice space that combines a lot of different healing modalities. But that I don't see that happening, of course, anytime soon, but I feel like I am making some good progress in like meeting the people that might happen with,
It's like a
or
dream.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm kind of like letting Jesus take the wheel, if you will, on my life right now. So
Love that song.
the more I find, the more I try to plan, sometimes the less it works. And then here I am 2 years later, like, oh, actually that worked out great, you know?
And like, I love how you said, like, things happen sometimes in our past that we didn't want to happen or was
Mhm.
like painful going through it.
Mhm.
But then years later, we're like, oh, I'm so glad. You
Right.
know, like I think about just when my mom passed and that time and how hard it was. But then when COVID hit, I was like, I'm so glad
Mhm.
that she's not here to experience this.
Yep. Absolutely. I was just talking about my sister-in-law. She's my sister, and how she passed right before COVID as well. And not glad she passed. She was 6 months younger than me, but she wouldn't have made it through
Right.
COVID.
I think yeah,
She just
right.
wouldn't have, and we would have had to watch that. And you know, I'm not grateful. I'm grateful on the timeline. Timeline it happened because it was going to happen anyway.
Right.
But yeah, it's like in retrospect, it was like, well, I guess that was okay.
It was meant to happen the way it did, you
Yeah.
know, and it's hard to see when you're in the thick of it.
Yep.
Right. When you're going through
But yeah,
stuff.
you understand that.
Yeah. So, I don't know, what else, what other classes that you offering? So you got the cards.
Oh,
you're doing
so
Reiki?
the other thing that I'm, like I said, so obviously we talked a lot, there is a need in the spiritual community for almost like mentoring,
Mhm.
coaching. I don't know what I would even call it, but I'm noticing this, like we talked about, and I have offered it to a few people that are my regulars that come in where we do a card reading, but a lot of it, like I have one guy who comes in 40 minutes at a time. We do a card reading, but most of it is just sitting and talking about all the spiritual stuff. He doesn't have anybody to talk to. So it's kind of offering up that like space, but then also it's like mentoring. So I don't know where that's going to go, but it has been something I've organically added. And I just charge the same amount of time for a card reading. And then I have been teaching people cards.
Okay.
So that's another thing. Paying, you know, having people pay for it the same rate as a
And
regular
show them
reading.
how to
Yeah.
read cards.
But
Okay.
like actually just sitting down and like if somebody wants me to spend a half hour teaching them how to read cards, I'll do that. So
Right.
those would be, so services would be, you know, kind of starting with some spiritual mentoring, can include a card reading, card readings, Reiki, and then I think teaching cards. So
Yeah.
those would be the main ones right now.
Which it's a good order to go in, right?
Yeah.
They have to experience all before they.
Yeah,
can
and like
learn
I
how to
said,
read
I
it.
mean, like what you mentioned, you don't always know which way things are gonna go.
Right.
I've learned so much, so I've been working there since October and I've learned and adapted and changed so much, and I didn't think I would be adding on those services, and here I am. So
I love that.
say, okay, this is my life. Okay.
Yeah, and like you said, we've known each other.
Go with the vibes. It's fine. Follow the vibes.
And I love it because it kind of brought us back into
I
connection.
know,
Yeah,
I
like, we've
know.
been friends for a long time, but you know, never really crossed paths that
Yeah.
way. Because life's
It's
different paths.
Yeah, it's funny how like, I don't know, like when I met you, there are certain people I meet and I'm just like, I feel like I either knew you or should have known you or meant to know you or all of the
Another
above.
lifetime.
All of the above. Because I feel like there's definitely been a few people in my life where I'm just like, huh, I just am connected to you, and you know, time might pass and we don't talk, but there's just certain people that it's just sometimes you're in a flow together and sometimes you're not, but it's still the love is still there, and it's like the encouragement is still there.
And you pick right up.
Yeah.
I mean, I have, you know, Tracy, my friend Tracy, who we're doing the To Hell and Back
Mhm.
podcast, so we're
Yes.
working on starting that up. I mean, you know, I met her, she took one of my classes for Reiki, did
Mhm.
Reiki. And then we just kind of fell out of touch for a while, but
Mhm.
it was like, but when we came back into connection, it was just like just like yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like, it's amazing.
I know.
And
I
those
love
things
that.
happen. I do
Mhm.
too. So is there anything else that we haven't
Mhm.
covered that you want anyone to
I
know?
don't think so. I think we talked about a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, like at the end, when I post this, we will have ways to get a hold of Becca.
Mhm.
Email, phone number, Roxy's address at
Yep.
Roxy's Rock Shop. We put litter bug stuff in there. If you want to
Yeah,
put that in there.
that'd be great.
If someone's local and wants to join, that would,
Mhm.
what better way to help the community?
Yes,
So
absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I
Thank
feel
you.
honored that you wanted to spend time and chat with me about all this
this
stuff.
was so much fun,
Yeah.
and I bet you all this is gonna come out because we're talking, and
Yeah.
looking at each other, so we'll have to see. But
Yeah, I'm
either
curious.
way-
I normally would look at the camera.
I know, that's okay. We're gonna just go with the flow, and we just hope everyone watches and likes and shares.
Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you very much. All right, bye, everyone.